changed my procedure date from Tuesday to Thursday, so I got 48 hours free. The equipment broke down. I'm glad it broke down, you know.
Is that outpatient procedure? Or would
Yeah,
it be-
they call it drive-by surgery.
Not so sure I like that.
4 hours. 4 hours in the hospital from the time you walk in until the time they let you out.
It's good. It's not bad.
It's about an hour and a half procedure. It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. When he started talking about this, I felt like I was in Star Wars. You know, it's just,
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Washougal Workshop, Washougal City Council Workshop Meeting for September 26th, 2011. Ms. Forsberg, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Coaston,
Present?
Councilmember Shoemaker,
here,
Councilmember McDaniel,
Here.
Councilmember Delavar,
Present.
Councilmember Greenlee,
here.
Councilmember Morris,
Here.
and Councilmember Russell.
Here.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that would like to address council? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to our first presentation, Fire Consolidation Update. Chief Schumacher?
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, just want to give you a brief update on the way that things are going at the fire hall. So far, our savings, we projected to be somewhere between $16,000 and $20,000 is what the EMS system has saved to date. The reason I can't give you a definitive number is that when figuring out the overtime, we didn't do a complete analysis of who was working for who. So we just took this shift, so many hours, and so we've come up to about 300 hours and averaged kind of the rate of pay of what we currently pay our firefighters. So the EMS system, not the city of Washougal, has saved about 300 hours, somewhere between $16,000 and $20,000, we believe at this time. In addition to that, that doesn't include what we call the porter factor. That's our new firefighter that we hired. Those savings weren't included in that $16,000 to $20,000 figure. So each shift that Ben works is an additional, what we figure about almost $800 savings to the EMS system that he works. The city is paying his salary, but to the EMS system, it's money that's been that we don't have to take out of reserves. And I know some of you think that maybe the Washougal was going to save some money. That hasn't happened yet. Fortunately, all our employees are back to work. We're at full strength. It would really show up, I believe, if we had some extended sick leave, and I hope that doesn't happen. So, because we do have some floaters right now, some extra personnel that could backfill those positions. So if somebody does call in sick, we can fill that. If we have an extended leave, we can fill that. So there is some money available out there for us to save if indeed somebody was to get sick or injured long term. So, the other thing, if you want to look at, is I handed out is what we call the ROC study. If you look on the sidebar there in the margin on that piece of paper I sent out, and if you read through that, it's the Resuscitation Outcome Consortium. And in the Portland metro area, Camas came out on top with the most number of saves per resuscitation. And I think that's indicative of the EMS system we currently are providing to the communities of East County Fire and Rescue, Washougal, and Camas. And I think it's something that we should be very proud of. For the Camas Fire Department and their efforts, as well as the other two communities. So, and Nick here, Swinhart is here with the Camas Fire Department. He has any answers to any of the questions that you might have as well. So, I guess I'll open it up to any questions right now.
Chief, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Questions from council on the trial consolidation?
Just a straightforward one. Can you just refresh my memory on when the starting point was for the consolidation, when the clock started ticking?
Unofficially, the clock, we went into effect July 13th. That's when the Camas firefighters moved from Station 172 into our station. What we're looking at, though, is August 20th. That's when firefighter Porter started and he was able to act independently on the ambulance. And so we're looking at about an August 20th date.
Okay. So the savings that you've accrued, they have been generated since August 20th?
They would have been since July
Since
13th,
July,
actually,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, Rod?
Chief Swinhart, where and how are you going to come up with a definitive answer for when we're saving money and how we continue to survive this thing? Because when we first started this thing, even Councilman Shoemaker and I said at the time, how do we make this thing work at somewhere down the road after 6 months? We're spending more money than we're bringing in. How do we get to that point, and when do you think you guys will have a number for that?
That's a good question, Councilman. And Chief Schumacher and myself are getting ready to put together a presentation to both of our respective councils that will answer a lot of those questions and sort of set a roadmap, if you will, for the coming months, because we don't, obviously, Ron and I, neither one of us want to wait until 6 months is up before we finally sit down and say, okay, where do we go from here? So this presentation that we're putting together will examine some of the alternatives out there, some of the options we have for both of our cities, and hopefully, get a chronological order of events that we would like to see happen between our councils and between our departments to try to set that groundwork for the future.
John?
Chiefs, part of the groundwork that you're going to need to really, I think, till up in regards to the future of this consolidation is how are we going to deal, the EMS in particular, with the Medicare-Medicaid issue. That shortfall is going to continue. It's not going to get better, and that's going to continue to be a burden on the system. I think having something in place to address that in a meaningful way so that we're somehow making up the shortfall, be it with a nonprofit that might assist in that or something to that effect. But having a plan in place, I think, would really help strengthen this consolidation moving forward, because that's going to continue to be a big issue for us.
It absolutely will, and there's, as far as the Medicare changes, the only thing that's certain about those is it'll continue to change, and it'll probably continue to get worse. The long-term answer to that is obviously we have two choices. We either find other methods of revenue or we cut our expenditures even further. And that's if we hope to make the present system continue on. Those are the two alternatives available to us. So obviously in any plan that we come up with is going to have to take that into account and take into account that those revenues from Medicare are probably going to continue to decrease in the future. So we're going to have to take that into account as well.
Just want to add one thing, as far as our service delivery. City Camas, their fire department did analysis of the run times, and when analyzing the run times, how between the time they're dispatched to the time of arrival, they're averaging about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. AMR currently is averaging about 8 minutes, and as you know, in the emergency service arena, seconds count. So it's a big deal, and it's a big deal to, I believe, to the citizens of Washougal to have that ambulance in the fire station, and we're going to do our best to try to keep that.
Rod?
I heard a statement the other day at the fire station made that by the time you guys have tweaked it a little bit to get the ambulances moving, has our ambulance out of Washougal become the busiest, most runs, or is you still at 41 having the most runs?
No, right now the ambulance here in Washougal is the busiest ambulance in the system. Yes. And the keep in mind that we have in our system, we have the closest unit dispatching, and that's all through automatic vehicle locating systems that our dispatch uses. So every ambulance in our system, all three of them between 42, 41, and 171, will be dispatched automatically by the CRESA computer, depending on what the computer shows as the closest vehicle to the incident. So that Washougal ambulance can sometimes get called over into Camas, and sometimes it could get called way up north towards Skamania too. It just depends on what they show as the closest unit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that we had that discussion somewhere along the way, that it was nearly the most calls generated by that ambulance.
And it is definitely now.
It is now. Huh?
Yes.
In the consolidation, have you guys got any further on, even though it appears that it's working command structure-wise, I thought I heard I guess it was at the ECAB meeting that you guys talked a little bit about potentially it's beyond your expertise, or at least the time frame you guys, the amount of time you guys have to generate. But making the command structure or the organizational changes in the structure, are you guys still working on some aspects of that?
Go ahead.
Are you referring to the presentation that we plan on putting together as far as the alternatives for the system?
Well, I know that at one time you had said that you thought that your time, the amount of time allotted to you guys in your daily operations and stuff, how were you going to be able to put that together to make this thing, all the deficiencies
Right.
between the two departments?
Right, and I think that what you're referring to, Councilman, is in part anyway, is this presentation that I alluded to that Ron and I are working on that will compare and contrast the different systems and alternatives available to both of our cities. And one of the things that we discussed at the ECAB meeting is that Ron and mine's expertise is going, and actually the time we have available to commit to this project is going to reach a certain threshold where we're, unless we don't want to do anything except work on this presentation, it's going to be difficult for us to probably get the detail that may be expected on certain aspects of it. I mean, like actual dollars and cents. So as we put this presentation together and when we deliver it to both the council here and in Camas, we'll be able to tell you if there's additional information we feel that needs to be fleshed out that we don't feel qualified to provide, and we'll definitely let you know about that.
Okay.
Other questions? I know, in regard to having the ambulance in Station 171, has that improved our run times and response times here in the city itself versus utilizing just the fire engines as we did in the past?
Well, I don't think we've done an analysis of that, but I would just have to say that we're a lot closer right now, so I would say that our run times have diminished. I don't think they've done just isolated, that number I gave you was for the whole system. It wasn't for the individual units. We can certainly look that up and try to get that information to you.
Yeah, we'd have to crunch those numbers, Mayor, but it's anecdotally, if somebody were to have a heart attack outside of council chambers, previously the nearest ambulance would have come from downtown Camas, from our city hall. Now it's just across the road over at your Station 171. So that's a definite market advantage over what used to exist in the past.
How's the new unit proving out? Any problems with it along the way?
We haven't had a problem one yet, and the guys and the one gal love it. So, and she's even spent a few nights at the station. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment, but everything seems to be running pretty good.
Good.
Also wanted to just add that when we talk about the ambulance versus the fire truck, the ambulance's run times or average run times are dictated to by Dr. Whitwer, the medical advisor. The fire truck getting there within 5 minutes, 90% of the time, is a level of service that we have chosen as a city to do.
Right.
So there's both being run, but the ambulance parked out here doesn't change necessarily the response time in the fire truck as much as it is that we're worried about the ALS ambulance getting there, and so are they, because there's a penalty to a degree after not meeting so many times.
The times, yeah.
The health system is really looking at things like how long does it take for the ambulance to get from the scene to the hospital. And they have a thing called stopping the clock that some fire departments are utilizing to say, well, as soon as an ALS vehicle gets there, be it a rescue truck, an engine, or an ambulance, the clock should stop because we have the ALS unit there on scene. And whatever needs to be done can be done to that patient. Well, we've been looking at that and thinking, well, maybe this doesn't really work because we're trying to get that person from the scene to the hospital in the most expeditious manner, because that's where the true definitive care happens. That's when they can go through and if they need a CAT scan right away, if they unclog an artery or something like that, that's where the real definitive care. So we're looking at, let's get to the ambulance to the scene as soon as we possible, get the patient on the ambulance and get them to the hospital, because that's where you're going to see the real improvements, I believe.
So, refresh my memory. As far as levels of service go, do we have, is it city policy or is it state policy as far as target to meet as far as how long it takes for us to respond to a call?
Well, for this, the city of Washougal, we have our own target. For the ambulance system, that's a different issue. They have to abide by what the county has mandated.
And how close are we to, do you know what those limits are?
Well, we've set a standard of reaching the scene basically within 5 minutes, 90% of the time, and we have that benchmark currently in place.
Cool. And the EMS? Or should I say the ambulance?
As far as 5 minutes and 30 seconds, 90% of the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's their standard.
But it gets progressively different as the further out into the
Oh, absolutely, yes.
East County Fire and Rescue and those numbers change.
Okay.
They have a rural, a suburban, and a urban standard that they use.
Thank you.
I know one of the three legs of the expectations for the consolidation and success, or not, of the trial consolidation, was certainly the integration of our volunteers and their activities and all that kind of good stuff. Are there any comments, any ideas how that portion of it is integrating and being used?
It's been a non-issue, to be honest with you, Mayor. We just haven't, we were talking about some personality clashes and that, and we just haven't experienced it in the fire hall at all.
And I've come out to the volunteer meeting here in Washougal to introduce myself and to formally and personally extend the invitation for the Washougal volunteers to come ride out with us out of our 2 stations in Camas. I don't think anybody's taken us up on that yet, but I have seen some of the Washougal volunteers come through our station just riding on the ambulance, maybe on a transport on the way back or something. But I think to a certain extent it's only been a couple months, and it's probably a comfort level thing. I think it's going to take a little while for them to feel comfortable coming and scheduling a shift out of Station 42, for instance, or something like that. But it will take time, but certainly the invitation is there, and we haven't heard any issues on our end either.
Good.
As a volunteer in that organization, I want to say that I had some fears of some people, and a lot of that came from, we only saw those individuals at that most intense time. And so maybe there were issues there along that line. But what I've seen since they've been here, and where we can sit down and talk and share a meal or ride out together, it's been really quite well. It's worked out real well.
I know I've had the opportunity over the last couple of months, I run into various members of both departments in a lot of different places, and it has been heartening that, to a person, every one of them have been very complimentary of how things are going and how the relations have been and all the different pieces. So certainly your comments in the newspaper this morning, as far as, things going so well that you're wondering what's wrong, it sounds like even down through your troops, everybody along the way, that same regard is held, so.
And that's, and that's not to say, Mayor, and I'm sure Ron would agree, that there haven't been some issues that have popped up. I mean, we've had some minor things, some scheduling conflicts, that just differences in how our departments have been run in the past. And so little issues have popped up here and there, but Chief Schumacher and I maintain a strong line of communication, and we address issues that pop up early, and that way they fail to become big issues. So that's what we hope to continue to do in the future.
Well, to the credit of any of your staffs, I think everybody here probably knows that firemen can be a little bit more outspoken than some of the average folks, but credit to all your folks. Even the small issues have not made it to, at least to my ears, so they're taking them in stride.
I have one final question, and it'll be at Mayor, or City Administrator, or the Fire Chiefs. What have we done? There's three agencies involved in this, keeping this EMS system alive. Has there been any inroads in with East County Fire and Rescue to get them back to the table and pay their share of keeping this organization alive? Not because it shouldn't be up to just us when there's another organization that's involved.
My understanding, and I have not had this discussion directly with the East County Fire and Rescue Commissioners, so I'll qualify this by saying that my belief is that if Camas and Washougal enter some sort of formal consolidation, to permanently consolidate, or some sort of regional fire authority, I have a feeling that we will also find the East County Fire and Rescue Commissioners at the table, at least initially. I think that they would be interested, but we would have to make that formal offer and gesture to them, and I think that they're always fond of saying that they're always open to talks of consolidations or better efficiencies that benefit their citizens. So I think that if we enter those kind of talks between Camas and Washougal in the future, I'm sure that we can get them to the table.
Dave?
Chief Swinhart, I just wanted to confirm something I thought I heard. Did I understand you to say that continuing current service levels, and I'm interpreting, I think, what you said here, continuing current service levels will require either more revenue or reduced expenses?
Yes, because the current system that we have, and this will be part of the presentation that Ron and I put together. The present system we have, even though it's resulted in better efficiencies and saving some money, is still not going to save enough money for what our projections are for 2012. So that's what I mean, that there still has to be something that takes place down the road. Even though this is working out great, it's not the long-term solution, what we're doing right now.
Okay, I suspected that from the beginning. I'm glad to see an acknowledgement of that, as difficult as it is. Thank you.
Any other items from council? Chiefs, thank you very much. Appreciate the efforts everybody's putting in on it.
Thank you.
From the fire chiefs to the police chiefs. Welcome. Chief Lackey, good to see you.
Thank you.
If council remembers, it wasn't not too long ago that we were here to talk.
Is your mic on?
Keep the court local and had worked out an agreement with the county to do so. And it seemed like the next logical step in that process would be to look at, can we do this ourselves and increase some efficiencies in that. So tonight, Chief Lackey is here with Larry Lene. I don't know if you know Larry. Larry does the court security there. Are here to report on the feasibility of, can we do this on our own? So I have some handouts to pass out to council while they're.
Well, welcome. And as the chief said, this is kind of the form of an update. So if you recall, in late 2010, we had this scurry when the county announced that they could no longer afford to operate a municipal court in Camas and Washougal. And they invited us to participate in court in the city of Vancouver at the main courthouse every day. And that fell to the two councils to decide, do we end up taking them up on that offer, or do we try to maintain a local court? And thanks to the cooperation of Chief Mitchell and the people at the court in the two cities, we were able to pull very quickly a deal together where we maintain the court local. And the way that we did that, in essence, is that the two communities got together and we took over all of the, what I call the infrastructure of running the court. We pay the light bill, we pay the garbage, we pay the lease. It's our building now. And the only part of the equation that we didn't take over was the employees. And so in 2011, January 1st, 2011, while we were paying for all the infrastructure cost, we started to look early in the year at this issue of the employees. And we asked ourselves a question, and we ultimately asked the two councils a question: does it make sense for the cities to really fully operate a municipal court and to end their contract with the Clark County District Court? So the pie chart behind me shows for this year, the two cities are currently still paying the county about $190,000. And what's most striking about this equation is that it's a purple color on your graph, which is almost accounts for a quarter of the entire pie chart. And all that is buying us is that's administrative overhead. Well, one of the things that the two cities have done well at in working together is we don't charge each other administrative overhead. On our cooperative programs that we do, whether they're animal control or the court or the fire merger, there is no overhead cost. So this part of the equation really tells us that there might be some savings that are still out there. As we prepared our 2012 budgets, these court costs for the salaries of the employees, which is the judge and two clerks, have remained relatively flat. But the question that we're asking ourselves is, could we go hire our own judge for 52 visits, once a week for 52 weeks? And could we hire our own clerks to run the court and do it at a lower cost? If we did it, would there be either efficiencies or better customer service? As you know, right now, we have the court is actually closed to the public for 3 days a week. So we're only open actually where you can walk into the court and do business on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what we decided to do last April is we came back and we asked you to take on a study. And in order to do it, we asked if we could increase the court security officer, who is sitting here to my left, Larry Linné, his work week by 3 hours a week. And that 12 hours a month gives Larry time where if he needs to travel, take a road trip to another municipal court or another city, to look at this study and say, well, how is someone else doing it? Like, how's the city of Battle Ground doing it? Or how is Olympia do it? And the ultimate goal is to bring back to both councils a recommendation and to allow you to decide whether or not we should actually proceed with opening up our own municipal court, staying with Clark County District Court, or some option in between there. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Larry because, again, this is the form of kind of an update. We have started down the path, and he's going to tell you kind of what he's found initially and kind of where he's going and when you can expect to get that final recommendation.
Thanks. Well, he threw a lot at me for 3 hours a week, but I think we're going to get it done. What I initially looked at is a kind of a three-prong approach to gathering information. I wanted to look at communities that were similar to ours in makeup. In makeup, I mean population, the number of court filings, the number of days that they run a court, which is one. And I wanted to look at, is it economically feasible to do it, number one. Number two, whether we do it or not, what are some of the best practices and procedures out there? Eventually, could we improve things on our own, even if we don't take over the operation of the court? And third, how could we improve customer service, as the chief initially mentioned? In other words, 2 days a week, trying to be open a little bit more, and just kind of our overall approach to the citizens and in how that relates to the court. And how I've been accomplishing this is I've gone to 2 cities so far, Battle Ground and Chehalis, which were similar in ours in the criteria I had. And I've just done face-to-face interviews with those that are related to the court, our community partners in the court. In other words, I interviewed face-to-face with the court administrator, the judges, the attorneys, the clerks, and police department, all those that interact with the court, trying to get their perspective on, is it a good thing to run your own court? What are some of the good things? What are some of the bad things? And just document that information. What I hope to do is get all this data, put it into a form, a report form, and have that ready in about 6 weeks. And also gathering financial information, all the court records is, from the other jurisdictions. And then around the 1st of December, sometime in there, have some type of final report or recommendation ready.
And I think that really captures the heart of the update, except I'll add one thing, and that's if we encountered early on in this kind of a big red flag that or a roadblock where we thought, oh, this is not going to work, or things are looking bad, we would probably be coming to you now saying, we should just stop and stay where we're at with the county. And I think in conversations with Larry and Chief Mitchell, kind of the opposite's almost true. We're seeing many more positive signals that that this could work, and it actually could work toward the advantage of the cities and the taxpayers and the community. So it's definitely, I think that the signs are thumbs up to keep progressing and, to bring you back that final report and this Camas City Council, that final report. And then it will be, of course, your decision on how to proceed. One of the things that Larry's digging into and finding out that is there's quite a state mandated bureaucracy around transferring courts. So it's not quite the easy thing to just kind of say, well, we're going to be out next month or give a 30 or 60-day notice. It actually could take a several-year notice or the terms of the elected judges. And so it's going to be, even if we had, make that final leap and head down that path, this is not going to be kind of a quick thing that you could do in, 3 to 6 months. So I guess it's questions.
Yes, ma'am. This is a question that I've never delved into, so perhaps you could enlighten me. You mentioned that we might be hiring, if we go through with this process, we'd be hiring our own judge. What are the limits between, or should I say, what defines whether a judge is hired versus elected? And I'm afraid I just don't know the limits of what to expect there. And do you have any insight on that?
Well, I don't know if I don't have a lot of insight on that. I know that that is established by the state. And for communities such as Battleground or small communities that have municipal courts, you are allowed to appoint a judge. But you may also be allowed to elect a judge. And that's one of the things that actually Larry's looking into with the state. But on the county district court basis, it is mandated by law that they are all elected judges.
Yeah, for years, we had an appointed judge here in Washougal. Rod?
Chiefs, are La Center and Ridgefield Battleground, are they all fighting, I would assume they're fighting the same battles as you guys, trying to keep their structures alive and keep the court system going in their own communities. But I guess I would ask the question then that if everybody were doing somewhat the same thing, is there a chance that all of the small cities in Clark County could get one judge, and on Mondays he's in Battleground and on Tuesdays you could just rotate from city to city?
Yeah, that's certainly possible. The Battleground judge is Greg Gonzalez, and he's an attorney and an appointed judge for the city of Battleground. And so the question is, could we also appoint the same judge? And yes, that's, as far as I know, that's entirely possible.
You can either do that or you can contract to the county system as well.
But I'm just
Isn't that
wondering-
where the term circuit judge came from?
Yeah, I was just wondering if that's something that Ridgefield is struggling with, is what you're talking about tonight, and
Yeah, the Battleground Court actually contracts for the city of Ridgefield and the center. So they operate much like the Camas Washougal Court. They're the Battleground / Ridgefield / La Center Court. So they cover the entire North County for municipal court services.
would it be doable for a put it out for bid kind of thing? So,
Yeah. I think when it comes to selecting your judge, it's probably you want the right person and with the right, that brings the right talents to the table. Of course, you have to be an attorney to be a judge, but maybe not all attorneys could be a judge. And so you could put it out to bid. I suspect there's probably a little more to that, to actually just picking that person with the right judicial experience.
well, any RFP, we would have to qualify that individual anyhow, so, that, we go through that
Yes.
process to
Yes.
see if they're the right fit. But I just, as long as we're all struggling through this in all the small towns in Clark County, maybe it's something we can hit up and all of us run together. But you made a comment earlier, though, about the fact that, we may see a judge out here on Thursday. I think that's our court date specific, isn't it?
Yes.
But you have it open on Tuesday. Is that for people who want to come in and pay their fines in advance?
That's correct. For all your court business, whether you want copies of your files, pay your parking tickets, your fines, that's the day you can do any other court business on Tuesday.
So even though we may talk about a judge that would float around to the smaller cities, we still have to have a clerical staff down there to do those.
Right.
Those other
Currently, that's what we're buying from Clark County is 2 part-time employees. They work, they're .6 FTE employees. And that's the way that they actually run the court with the 2 days a week is it equals, we're buying 1.2 in total, 1.2 FTEs from them.
Larry, I'll get for you, in June at the Association of Washington Cities Convention up in Spokane, there was one of the sessions that I still, not exactly sure why I sat in on it, but I did because there wasn't anything else that was pulling my interest at the time, but it was on municipal courts. And I thought it was going to be more on establishing municipal courts and the process to go around and that type of stuff. What it actually ended up being was pretty much more of a gripe session from some of the municipalities that were in there. And one of the two speakers, and that's who I'll get you the name and phone number from, is from whichever the county is up there. Is it Spokane County?
It's Spokane.
And he is also by contract through must be through the county to, I want to say, Airway Heights or Cheney, and he's their municipal court judge as well. But he's also the sitting presiding judge for the entire state association of municipal judges. So he's the guy, if anybody has a gripe about their judges and what's happening in their communities, that type of stuff, and how non-responsive the judge is being or whatever it happened to be, he's the guy that you're supposed to call to go through who has the power to put the arm on the guy. Or the gal. But I will get you his name and number because it sounds like there are a lot of different issues out there in regards to municipal courts versus district courts. And some of them have to do with the judge and the length of time you have them. And it sounded like there's a time coming up, there was like a 4-year period or something where when you appointed a judge, you couldn't unappoint them. And, you know, people are trying to figure out how to get rid of them in the meantime or that type of thing for a variety of different reasons. But it may be that singular judge may be a good source of information for you on municipal courts and some of those that are operating well or some of those that are maybe having some pitfalls and that type of stuff in there as well.
Yeah, that'd be great information, Mayor. I'd appreciate that.
You bet. Paul, do you have a question? Other council members? Ollie?
Just a clarification, I know that at one time, that particular building was sort of a community room for different events. So now, is there any thought to doing that again, especially with only having it really staffed and utilized 2 days out of a 5-day week?
Actually, I worked with the port and with Chief Mitchell to end the community room use because it was in conflict with kind of the operations of the court. Those two functions really don't go too well together, having, you know, like soccer parties or wedding receptions and then court the next morning. You know, the court starts very early, and so if you show up and there's birthday cake all over the chairs and somebody didn't clean up from the rental party that they were supposed to, they may not get their $25 deposit back, but there's just no fixing it when you're trying to, you know, you come in, you're trying to conduct court business. So the port had a contract in their contract with the port when the PUD sold the building. They could be released from the requirement to have it as a community room as long as there were other community rooms that came online. Well, when the port originally signed that contract was 15 years ago, and since that time, there's a couple community rooms in Camas that are available, including Camas Police Station, the library, Station 4-2. And so there was more community room access in the East County area. And so after speaking with all of the court staff, including the judges, they really just, you know, had nightmares over that party use, that party rental use. And primarily it was just because people really didn't clean the room after they used it. And then there was just no time in the morning to, you know, bring in a janitor to fix the problems.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Chiefs, Larry, thank you very much. We appreciate the update.
Okay. So we expect to be back in towards the end of the year.
Good. Chief, could you make sure and get a copy of the handouts to Don? Okay, into some agenda items. Mr. Dunn, supplemental professional services agreement number 2 from BP Americas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On August 23rd, we presented our draft capital facility plan to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended a rate of $260 for our TIF, our transportation impact fees, rather than the current plan that outlined a $392 transportation impact fee. So this supplemental professional service agreement will do a number of things, but basically it will look at all that's involved with changing the rate from $392 to $260. So it'll look at level of service. It'll look at all the projects that are involved. And that's what this supplemental professional service agreement is, to take this back to the Planning Commission and not only look at just the rates, but the whole facility plan. Are there any questions on the supplemental professional service agreement with Parsons Brinkerhoff?
I do have one quick question. When you say the traffic impact fee has a rate of $392, that's $392 per what?
That would be per trip generated.
Okay. And did the Planning Commission arbitrarily pick 260, or did they have a specific reason for picking 260?
The reason that was ventured was that basically they wanted us to be in a similar position as Camas, next door. So if a developer looked at Camas versus Washougal, that they might come here versus Camas if they had that lower transportation impact fee rate.
Other questions from council? Okay. Professional services agreement from the resource company.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a requirement under our permit with Army Corps of Engineers, and it has to do with some planting, and some monitoring of the W Street water line project. After we excavate, there's some bare soils, and we want to make sure that there's not noxious weeds that come into that area, and that this is a professional service agreement that is required, like I said, under the permit with Army Corps of Engineers. Any questions on the PSA with the resource company?
Rod?
Other than the fact that this is mandated, we have to do it.
Yes, that's correct, under our permit with Army Corps of Engineers. So this is something they identified in the permit process.
And this has specifically to do with the fact that there's a stream that we're excavating, correct?
That's correct. Yes, we're crossing Campen Creek, so it's an open excavation of the creek there.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Moving along to a professional services agreement from Wallace Engineering.
This is, like we said, PSA from Wallace Engineering for our Campen Creek culverts. Typically we have some flooding up there off of J Street, between J and M Street each year. This is identified in our capital facility plan for our stormwater department. And this is a professional service agreement to do some pre-design phase of Campen Creek culverts, and then we can actually go after some funding at a later date, hopefully with Department of Ecology. It identifies surveying, preliminary design, environmental permitting, and these are some preliminary steps. Are there any questions on the Campen Creek culverts?
So Jim, this one's coming out of your capital facilities budget?
Yes.
Okay.
I notice it must be something that needs to be done. Some of the neighbors up there are leaving their sandbags on their
Right.
back porch right now, so.
Right. Yeah, we do get the localized flooding almost, it almost seems every year.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how much the repair was of the street up there that it undercut by the high school this last year?
I'm not sure of the dollar amount. We performed that work in-house, and we were up there last week as well. There's one between M Street and J Street, and we were up there with city staff, and we took a lot of the debris out of the channel below that service. So that was a good job for our stormwater staff versus contracting that out.
Any, Dave?
Jim, is this something that our city engineer could do?
Actually, the engineer worked on a part of this. Rob completed some of the JARPA, that's the Joint Aquatic Resource Permit application, and we saved approximately $4,000 on this professional service agreement. So some of it, yes, some of the hydraulic modeling, he probably wouldn't be able to perform those functions.
In addition to what he's already done?
Yeah, that's correct.
Any consideration being given to having him do that?
Yeah, I don't think he has the software or the modeling software to perform those functions and duties at this time.
Okay.
Also, he's working on many other tasks. So like I say, he's just one person. We get Wallace Engineering, and we get their full staff involved, and they can do a much better job with the full design.
You know, if we can do that sort of thing in-house without interrupting the continuity of the project, I'd sure like to see it.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. And I do have quite a bit of information that I could present at a later date, if you wanted, on what Rob Charles is doing and some of the savings or the offsets to his salary that he's already working on. It's substantial to this point already, so.
I appreciate the offer, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to get into the mayor's business.
But at some point, though, we certainly had, just as a sidebar, we had certainly promised to the council to be able to track a lot of Rob's stuff and timing and what it saves us off of PSA contracts and that type of stuff, so that we know that we're getting a return on him. I could tell you from the amount of time, which is not huge, that I spend in the building in my office during the daytime, I'm not sure who gets more visits, you or Rob. But it's kind of a revolving door down there. So he certainly seems to have his hands in a lot. Any other questions on the Camp Creek culverts? Okay, moving along, we have pulled item number 4 from the agenda for this evening. Item number 5, Public Works Trust Fund construction loan for pump stations 2 and 3.
Yes, these are, both of these projects are on our capital facility plan as well. And we are going to be removing some existing buildings over the site. We'll be changing out some existing pumps and putting some new submersibles in these as well. There's going to be some electrical components that are changed out, and some safety improvements are included as well. These facilities have reached their useful life, and they really do need to be replaced at this time. And we actually opted for the Public Works Trust Fund loan because of the great interest rate that we get from that Public Works Trust Fund loan. So these were actually a part of the bond package as well. So there's going to be some projects from our capital facility plan that we can move forward. Are there any questions on the pump station number 2 and 3 improvements?
I'm just curious, where is pump station 2 and where is 3?
Pump station 3 is down in the port. And then pump station number 2 is off of K Street, very close to where you used to live. I'm council member.
Other questions on the pump stations? Okay. Item number 6, Public Works Trust Fund construction loan agreement for the West Side well field.
Yes, these are disinfection improvements that we are looking at. We currently use chlorine gas as a disinfection for our water system. And with this, we would move to sodium hypochlorite, which is a much safer application. And similar to the pump stations, this funding opportunity with Public Works Trust Fund seems like definitely the way to go. Are there any questions on the West Side well field disinfection improvements?
Rod?
Jim, would you tell us a little bit about this process versus the one that was at the 28th Street, where we had the gas leak, chlorine leak that day, and had all the hazmat people out, and the safety factors, I guess?
Right, you know, in chlorine gas it's very unsafe, especially when you change out the canisters. You know, you have to obviously take the line apart, remove the canister, and we ran into some trouble where we didn't get it completely shut off. And so we did have a gas leak at that time over there at Hathaway Park. And yeah, very dangerous stuff. I mean, you could actually look at some of the vegetation, you know, afterwards, and it actually burnt the vegetation in many areas. So it's dangerous. It's something that most agencies are switching from chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite or some other type of disinfection just because of the safety aspect of it.
Jim, does this change out all of our well fields that we're using the chlorine gas in?
Yes, sir, yes. Right now, the upper well field has currently been changed already. We kind of use that as a pilot program, and staff did a great job with that one and did a lot of the work on that project. That's the one at Hathaway. And then this is for a much larger application down there at the lower well field, the rest of our wells.
I just wanted to make a public comment that, as Jim has pointed out, chlorine gas is very, very nasty stuff to deal with. Sodium hypochlorite is Clorox. Clorox bleaches, I think, 7%, is that right? And this is stronger than that, but it's much safer to handle and it's just a much more modern approach.
Any other items from council? Okay, Jim, thank you. I know it certainly was very competitive for the Public Works Trust Funds, Trust Fund loans this last year, so it was nice that we have two of them in there. Just for the public, if you haven't noted the agenda items, the low interest rate that Jim mentioned is 0.5% is what the city will pay on those funds. So it certainly is a tremendous opportunity for the city to be able to use money that's that less expensive.
Sean, was this one agenda item pulled, the one about adjusting the service area, the extraterritorial fire hydrant services?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. You should have received an email earlier today that Jim was pulling that one from the agenda for tonight. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now at that point in the meeting for any comments from the public? Harvey?
My question, basically, Mayor Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. I have been wondering for some time if the consolidation on the trial basis of the fire departments and the decrease in the response time, and also the W Street project that I have been told is increasing the water pressure up there for the top of the hill, will that have an impact on the fire insurance underwriters in rating our city?
I'm not sure if it'll have a direct impact. For the city, it won't. In certain zones, it may. We have fire hydrants up there that, quite frankly, are painted red,
Yeah.
the tops of them, so we don't even use
I
them
know,
because they
I
don't
know.
have enough flow.
Those are all factors, as you know, in determining the score that our department would get and the rating that we would have, which is then one factor in many factors in what the insurance rates would be. It will be positive. Whether it's will be significant enough amongst all of the factors for us to enjoy an improvement in our underwriting costs. I could try to find out if there's more than that. But
It would be interesting, and then if it does help the public and in large, it would be nice to have a notification of that somewhere in their utility bill. Something. I know I would be most interested if it would decrease. Yeah.
We
Me
all
too.
would be. Rod?
Harvey, the last time we went from a 5, we were rated and we went from a 5 to a 4. The homeowners policies, it's pennies. Where that 5 to a 4 makes up its biggest difference is in the commercial side of the world or the industrial.
Yeah. I
That's-
remember in Seattle in the 50s, when I was in the fire department, their rating was at a 2. And sometimes it got down to a 1. It was that good.
Yeah. We're a 4 in the city, and I believe Camas is a 3, and Vancouver may be very well down at 1 or 2, but it's a very tough thing to get to.
Oh, I know.
And costs a lot of money to get those down, when there's only pennies saved for the homeowners, but it's significant for the
Penny
business.
saved is a penny earned.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Harvey. Any other members of the public wishing to comment? Mrs. Terrell?
I'm Marilyn Tyrrell, and I live at 950 G Street. I again want to thank you for E Street because it is just lovely. It's like driving along melted butter.
But not as slick.
But not as slick, right. I am hoping, I've got this all, my notes are all screwed up here, but anyway, what I'm hoping is that the city will do some publicity, make a very big deal about the opening of E Street. I drive through Camas, and it's welcome to historic Camas, downtown. And first of all, this is an older town than they are, but I don't know how historic it is. I am hoping that we would get the staff to start thinking of various ways to start making noises about things that go on in Washougal. For example, Vancouver and the library, the Furstenberg Library, they just put out a notice, would the public please come and help weed? So everybody came and helped weed. Make a Difference Day is coming up for Vancouver. As far as I know, Washougal has no projects for Make a Difference Day. And there must be something that we can get the rest of us out to do, because the more we dig around with each other, if you'll excuse the expression, the more we get to know each other, the more it becomes a community. And I would like to see us do more of that.
Thank you, Marilyn. And
Thank you.
Make a Difference Day is October,
It's about the third week in October.
17th, something like that?
2022, somewhere in there. And, there was just Abel Kerr Park. Of course, it poured rain. And who knows, the third week in October, it may pour rain again. But it would be really nice if there were a variety of endeavors that people could go out and do.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to comment? Okay, I have only one item that I know of this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Forsberg. Do you want to do a little update on the recent audit release?
Sure. Today, the state auditors released our audit report for the 2010 financial and federal single audit that they performed about a month ago. And I'm pleased to announce that it's a clean audit. We received no findings, no management letters, and just one exit comment on that part of the audit. So that's a great thing for Washougal. And we've definitely do have some additional steps to take for the future to keep it even cleaner, but they reviewed the findings that they issued last year for the pedestrian tunnel and found that we had fully corrected them. And so they closed that part of the prior audit. And again, it's a great feeling to have a clean audit and have that done. And move forward to next year.
Just a reminder for the members of the Finance Committee, we do have this next Monday at 10 in the morning. We have the exit conference with the auditors on the accountability audit.
It's for the account, it was originally slated before the accountability audit, but they're actually going to discuss both audits, just to make it more formalized. And the accountability audit was clean as well, so no findings or management letters. So again, kudos to the finance staff. I know he's not here anymore, but thank RJ Stevenson, because he really went above and beyond before he left. They were running him ragged as he was trying to ensure that we knew what we were doing when he left on various E Street billings and different grant accounting that he was in charge of before he left. So in addition to moving his family across the state. So on record, I just want to thank RJ and the rest of the finance department staff, because they did a great job.
So let's make sure on Monday morning, let's conference him in on that.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Really.
Thank you, Jennifer. David, do you have any items this evening? Okay, any items from council? Paul?
Go ahead.
Just to, if I may, first of all, I got to congratulate the mayor and the hiring committee that hired you. It certainly pays to hire a former auditor from the state auditor's department, and I suspect that's why we did so well on this audit.
They didn't cut her any slack.
No,
They did not cut her any slack at all.
But she not only knows the routine, she speaks the language, so that's been a great help. And I know you've worked very hard to accomplish that, so nice going. The other thing is, I noticed that the county is now using E-Verify on contracts exceeding $25,000. Our threshold here in the city is $100,000, and I'd like very much to bring that issue back to the next workshop.
We can do that. Paul?
I just wanted to extend my personal thanks to the Finance Department, to Jennifer and to RJ and to Rodney and to Lee and to Jessica and Vicki and all of the people who work on that. I know that it's a team effort. And actually to David as well, that it's quite an improvement over some very trying times, and I want to just add my personal thanks.
Yeah, I want to apologize for missing the partnership update with SWEDA today. Could you give us a condensed version of what happened there today for the public as well to hear?
Well, basically, I think most of the public with possibly the exception of Harvey was there. There are a lot of things going on. Paul went through about 3 different individual companies that we're working with, that he's working with right now, in addition to some others, to give a flavor of the types of interests that are out there in the East County area. Talk some about the accountability side of where we'll be, where we're at currently as far as the incorporation of the entity, doing the finalizing of the bylaws and how we'll actually conduct ourselves, different things along those lines. Very few questions, which was good. I assume that means that the presentation was adequate for what's there. And Paul's got more appointments this week, and I know in the next 2 weeks he's got 2 or 3 others of folks who are just at the start of the interest area, in addition to working with some of our businesses as far as their expansions. So there's a lot happening all at one time.
Great, thanks.
I just wanted to add to that Mayor Higgins pointed out that Paul Dennis gave us 3 examples, A, B, and C, and that we know that if he'd given all of the examples, we'd be up to the middle of the alphabet. But it is an especially difficult and critical portion of this whole process that until there is a public announcement by the companies involved that of necessity this whole process is confidential. As we were taught in the Northwest Economic Development Training course. Now, There's no possibility that Ford is going to build an assembly plant here. Not going to happen. But if that were even under discussion, if we had to go talk to Ford, we wouldn't fly to Detroit. We'd fly to Cleveland and rent a car. That's the kind of confidentiality that is expected in some of these processes. And so I just wanted to be clear about that, but also that there's a lot more going on. I think the only company that he mentioned by name specifically was Linear, wasn't it?
As far as our expansion.
Linear Technologies is a semiconductor manufacturer that is moving 55 jobs from California to expand their existing facility in Camas. And there'll also be some physical expansion of that building also.
And just to add one more point to that, Paul did make it clear that many of those leads that he's working on now actually came from either elected officials or citizens.
Yes.
So that's kind of our call to action if you know of a business. And that most of them were small to medium-sized businesses, perfect for our environment. So if you know of a business owner or a company that's has an interest in relocating or moving, it's probably your civic duty to get a hold of Paul and he'll follow up on that.
David?
This morning, Paul Dennis was kind enough to host a meeting at his new digs over in the West Hickey building. And he previewed for us what he was going to talk about tonight. Dave Scott, Dave Ripp, and I attended that one. And I went into the meeting with two goals. One of them was to get a commitment to use outcome-based evaluation criteria to evaluate his efforts. And he committed to that like that, no problem. I'm very encouraged. The other thing was I was interested in how soon we could get some sort of draft on that. And he said by the end of next week. You can't ask for much more than that in the way of responsiveness. I'm looking forward to working with him to resolve what has been for me a major concern on this project. And I think we can get it done based on what I heard this morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet, Dave. Thank you for your efforts on that. Any other items from council? Rod?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody remembers too that when Nabil came here, he had come from Long Beach, and I asked him about that very thing. He said that every time somebody walked into City Hall in Long Beach and said they were going to build, initially, everybody was jumping up and down and, wow, this was going to be a great thing. He finally got to the point that when they started digging sand up, then they got excited. But until then, it wasn't worth your time to get all excited because 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 may locate, but there was an awful lot of that happening and speculation and not happening and nothing happening. So that's one of the things I want to keep in touch here with this as well, as we hear that there's a lot of things, a lot of people thinking about it, but we need to get excited too once the dirt starts to turn and not just jump up and down every time somebody talks about being here.
Yeah, to some degree, it's nice just knowing that you're on the list, that you're in the running, and that people are actually taking the meetings and taking the time to visit and come from here, so. Any other items from council members? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned. We will see you next Monday evening.